Another video to review some basic ideas in geometry for Julian and everybody else who watches this video in the future. So we talked about angles, and angles, we see examples here of the different types that we talked about. There's acute angles, they're small and cute. There are right angles, like you're going down and you make a right turn. And obtuse angles are really big, like a dinosaur or a bus, Autobus. And one we didn't talk about, that's not really talked about a lot, is a straight angle. When you look at a straight line as an angle, we call it a straight angle. So what is an angle? An angle is when two lines or rays connect at this certain point here. We call that a vertex. And what we're looking at is not how long the lines are, but the line could be small or big. It doesn't change the angle. What we're really looking at is how wide open the angle is. Or if you think of it as a mouth, opening and closing, we're looking at how open or closed the mouth is. So do you remember what we talked about? And maybe you don't. You can come back and review. What kind of angle is this? And it's acute. It's less than 90. The 90 would look like this. So what kind of angle is this? This is obtuse. So it's bigger than the corner, the right angle. So the right angle by measurement, we call it 90 degrees, but we'll talk about measurements later in another video. So again, what is this called? And then what's this one called? This one's a right angle. The one before was acute. And then when you open it wide, real wide, the alligator opens its mouth, we have something called obtuse. A big old bus would fit inside of it. So, like I had mentioned, I like learning the names of different things and what they mean. So acute, when we look at it, it's sharp. It means the word sharp, which kind of makes sense because when we look at the angle, the tip of the angle, it's very sharp when we do that. Sharp. And the smaller it is, the more sharp it is, like a needle. So the word obtuse is actually referring to dull or blunted, because instead of sharp, when we open the angle, the pointed part is now blunted or dull. It's no longer sharp. So in Greek and Latin, they would use the words that to them made sense, sharp angle and the dull angle. But we call it acute and obtuse. And of course, the right angle, which is the corner, it's made by using perpendicular lines. And let's see what we can find out about what that means. That's called the etymology. That's what the word means. So the word right, let's see, as an angle is probably not really going to come up as much as the word right in English, like I was right when we were arguing. Let's see if we can find what it talks about for angles. Having the base right angle with the axis. So it doesn't really have a direct meaning the way the other words did, which sometimes happen. It kind of means upright, which I guess it relates. If we look at the line here and it goes upright, then we call that a right angle. So the examples we could look at, let's look at some examples. Do you remember what these ones are? I guess the word's written there, but they're called obtuse angles. So a lot of times you see them on roofs. We saw them on the roof of a neighbor. But also on the corner are these two smaller angles that are more pointy. What are those called? Do we remember? Those are called acute angles. So up here on the top of the hanger, here we have a picture of the angle of a lawn chair. So we see angles all over the place. They help us to build and design things, and they help making triangles. We see them here on the stairs. And when we're building things, they can help us, especially making a roof. So obtuse angles are all over the place. We can kind of notice them and help us to remember it by refreshing our memory, and even in the car when we see them, we can say, oh, that's an obtuse angle. So let's take a look at some acute angles in real life. We also see those all over the place. Here we have a pointy angle, acute. Here's another one. Here we have some acute angles inside of this roof. In this street here, you have on one side an acute and on the other side an obtuse angle. So acute, the alligator's mouth is open in an acute angle. And then the last examples we can look at are right angles. Right angles are corners, a corner of your paper, sometimes a ruler. You have them in your chair here. When you're measuring how tall you are, you stand at a right angle to the floor, because if you leaned over, you wouldn't be as tall as you really are. See them here on the stairs. We see them here on the bird house. What kind of angles are these, though? And these are acute. We see them on the desk. We see them in most buildings. If we just Googled houses. Oh, that's a good example. Look at all the right angles in this house. They call this a modern design. We have a right angle here, and here, and here, and here, and here. But you'll see we have angles whenever we build houses, whether they're right angles or acute or obtuse, or a mixture of them. So those are acute angles, obtuse angles, and right angles. Actually, let's talk a little bit more. Where it all comes from is a circle. And one day we'll make another video about the measurements of angles, because most of the time we remember, or we've heard, that going all the way around in a circle is 360 degrees. So all the way around is 360. When we cut that in half, we want to go through the middle of it, that would mean it's 180. We called that a straight angle. And when we cut it in half again, I know it's not perfectly even, but now we have a right angle. So now we have 4 right angles, and 360 divided by 4 is 90. So that's why we say that it's 90 degrees. All the way around is 360. That means a corner is 90 degrees. So what we can see here, we don't have to get into the numbers, but right, everything that fits in here in this corner was going to be acute if we start here at 0. So if I draw here, I have an acute angle. I can draw another one and make it even bigger. Anything that fits in that first corner will be acute. But then if I go past that corner, everything over here in this area is going to be obtuse. So let's say I make the angle here to here. Now it's not pointy, it's obtuse, it's blunted. So I could also draw it here or here. So anything that's a dull point is called obtuse or blunted. So this is also why we talk about when we go and make a straight line, it goes halfway around a circle. So that's why it's 180 degrees. So I saw a problem in one of your worksheets that said if this is, let's say, 30, how much is the other one? So we would need to do a lesson to practice. Well, a straight line has 180. So we would take away that 30, and that would mean this is 150. But that's a lesson for another time. When we start here, anything that fits in the first box is going to be an acute angle. And then anything that fits in this box is going to be an obtuse angle. And really, most things we use a circle to actually help us build. We use circles and compasses in everything we built until we had computers. So that's a little lesson about acute, obtuse, and right angles. I hope it helps a bit.